Hello there, and welcome to Women's Business.
My name is Dr. Marianne Shallcross Smith, known to most as Dr. Daycare, and this is my co-host, Amy Vogel. We'd like to welcome you to our mentoring program designed to educate our community on issues facing working women. We will be speaking to our guests in the areas art, sciences, health, education, law, medicine, politics, community service, military, and business.
The goal of the show is to provide information that comes only from personal experience and to pass this information down to our daughters, nieces, neighbors, family, and friends. Much of the content will relate to the guest speaker's journey in their profession, what they have learned most about this process, and what they wished they had known before this journey began. Since women-owned businesses are the fastest growing sector of our economy, my guests will close with what lesson they would like to pass on to the viewing audience.
Hello, thank you for joining us on Women's Business. We are honored to welcome today Etta Zasloff.
Zasloff.
And how many times I practice that, Etta?
It's a Rhode Island accent.
It's Rhode
okay.
Island from West Virginia.
Right.
An author of children's books. That's always special to my heart when we talk about children. But I want to hear a little bit about you. Tell us.
Well,
West
I'm-
Virginia lady.
I'm the author of one book. Okay.
Me too, this
Beginning
one.
with X's and O's.
So that's kisses and hugs?
No.
Okay, just thought I'd throw it out.
No, it's about the alphabet.
It is,
It's
yes. I read it.
the evolution of the alphabet. And it was actually born on the floor of my kindergarten classroom. When I was a beginning teacher, I taught kindergarten for the first 10 years of my career.
Wow.
And it was in the 70s. Very few resources. Kindergarten in the public schools in West Virginia was just beginning. I was one of the first kindergarten teachers
wow.
that
Full day
was
or half
hired.
day?
Half day. I had 30 students
Wow.
in the morning
Just with you?
and 30 students in the afternoon. I had a full-time aide, but it was a totally different scene than it is now. So here I am, a first-year teacher, second-year teacher actually, thrown into a situation with few resources, no support, very little support. They gave us tables, chairs, 20 books, some toys for the kids to play with, and we were supposed to do the curriculum. There wasn't even really a written curriculum.
Wow.
So I enjoyed the freedom that gave me
Yes, I hear that. I hear you.
because I'm a creative person. So it was fun. Like some of the kids came in knowing the alphabet, but very few. And what they did know about it was how to sing the ABC song, which all kids learn that initially.
A, B, C, D.
But they have no concept about what the alphabet really is. So I had to develop some ways to teach that. And like I said, there were not resources out there like there are today. And so I made up these stories, and I started, instead of starting with the letter A, I thought to myself, I had to teach writing at the same time that you teach the letter recognition. And so I started with like straight lines at the X and developed into the Y, and just kind of went all, mixed up the alphabet, and eventually developed the alphabet into actually families, like the straights are
Amazing.
all developed from the straight letters.
That is great.
And then the rounds come from the O's, the letter C. This is one of my favorite stories, is the letter O is bitten by a shark and becomes a C. And this is kind of like the
There you go.
basis.
Oh, and C will never be the same to me again.
Exactly.
I got it.
But you have to do something that gets
Yes, you
kids'
do.
attention.
Yes.
And you can't just do the rote memory, this is the letter A. And I mean, that was how we were teaching the alphabet at the time,
Absolutely
was
were.
just copying, this is A, this is A, this is A. It doesn't have any meaning to kids. You have to
You gotta give it
tack
meaning.
it to something that they comprehend. So playing with these stories over those 10 years and finally, and sharing them with my fellow kindergarten teachers in the county that I worked in. There were about 20 of us.
Oh, wow.
And, they kind of liked the idea and they said, you should write those stories down. So I did. With the help of a friend, we wrote them down. And, but then over time, the stories changed too. So this book is like a reflection of not only those kindergarten years, but my life as it has evolved.
Absolutely.
And, I finally, after I retired from teaching, I taught 34 years in West Virginia.
Wow.
10 years in Rhode Island at Cherahoe Middle.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Cool.
Oh, you went to middle school?
Yes.
What a change.
Well, about every 10 years I changed
Nice.
because I like variety.
Yeah.
And I had become a elementary school counselor and also did some middle school counseling. So I liked that middle school age. That was the age that I really, kind of moved into. Little kids are exhausting.
They are exhausting.
It is hard
yes.
to do little
They're
ones
fun.
when you're,
When
they're so fun.
Yeah. In your 20s and 30s, right?
Yeah, and when you're like 20-something, they're great.
When you can run after them as well.
Trying to get down
Yes.
that floor and coming back up.
Exactly.
But I just want to say, and back in the 70s, you were a natural to understand that didn't have to go song, that you took an X and a C or laid them out on the floor for children to learn.
Yes.
Where did that come from? I mean, that's
Well,
like natural early childhood teachings.
I know, and I didn't really have
I hear
early
that.
childhood
And
background.
that's what I'm hearing. You
Yeah.
had really. I think it's so
I had an
cool.
elementary teaching
Yep.
degree, but I also had a counseling degree. I had my master's in
There
counseling.
you
So,
go.
so
I
I
have a master's
had
in counseling, so I get that.
I had a lot of child development
I'm
stuff
with you. I'm
and
with you.
Piaget and all of those
Yup.
learning theories. I had the
Erickson,
background in that.
Got it.
And so I knew that,
Has to be meaningful.
students needed to have something to really,
Meaningful.
you have to hang it on something they already know.
Absolutely.
And build upon that.
And build
Yeah,
upon
build upon
that. And
that,
it
yeah.
can't just be what comes from the book.
Yes.
So that's how the story evolved. But it didn't become a book until I decided after retirement that I was going to, I actually ran onto the manuscript. Like when I was cleaning out, you retire and you clean your
Yeah.
stuff out. So I ran onto the manuscript and sat down in the middle of cleaning and read the thing and laughed and like, oh my God, this is hilarious. I'd kind of forgotten it.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my friend who had worked with me to write it down to begin with, but she was like totally disinterested at the time. She didn't want to give it the time. I'm like, let's take this and do
time.
something with it.
Time.
And we didn't know what to do with it. And it was way too long to begin with.
For little children.
Too many words because we told it, and it's not
Yeah.
wasn't something that you read to students. We told it. We drew pictures. How the on the chalkboard on white paper, and so when she kind of backed out of it, I'm like, this is something I always wanted to do.
Do it.
So I'm going to do it. And so I set the
did
date.
it.
I said,
So that's what I want to know. How, anyone out there that's watching the show, how do you get them to get motivated to do it? 'Cause I'm
you
stuck on a
have to
second
make
book.
that commitment. A lot of people say to me and
Yeah.
have said to me, oh, I have a book. How did you go about doing
Right.
that? So I just, one of the things that I did was join, and I had joined this even before I made this final decision. I joined the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which
wow.
is a huge international organization.
I'm aware of that, yeah.
And I went to a couple of their conventions or conferences.
Yeah.
And I really learned a lot at those
Okay.
places. And one of the things that I learned, and I remember one of the keynote speakers was William Joyce. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Well, he's a current author of children's books.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And one of the things he said was, follow your heart with your book. The industry is all about making money.
Yeah.
And they have, you know, set parameters, totally set parameters for everything. A children's book is 32 pages, a picture book, for example, and, you know, so on, everything. The middle books, middle grade books look like this. Everything looks, they're the same size and so on. And he said, you know, allow yourself to be creative. Don't stifle your creativity. And I loved that message. That was a big message that I took home from one of those conferences, and kind of spurred me to like take a second look at that manuscript and say, what could I do with this? So I give him credit as a mentor. I don't know him personally, but
he gave you some words to.
But he gave me some words to think about.
Yes.
And so I constantly kind of recalled his words as I was going through this process. But I did make the commitment in January, February of 2017.
Yeah.
When I was going to turn 70 that year in November, and I said, I'm going to publish this book for my birthday.
I like it.
Instead
I'm a
of
November baby. I like that.
When's your
instead
birthday?
of taking
November what?
23rd.
24. Hey.
Hey, how about that?
Thanksgiving baby.
Thanksgiving baby.
Yeah, well, I was.
Yes, you were. I know that.
So,
Cool. That
so
was your present to yourself.
That was. And so I sat
That's
down,
beautiful.
and this is one of the things that I learned at the conference too, is make yourself a schedule of dates
stick
of
to
when
it.
you're going to accomplish what. And so I hired a, I don't know if you'd call her a coach. She was an artist, but she was a friend of mine, but I valued her professional opinion as far as, because I didn't have any artwork to go with it yet. It was just text. And so I asked somebody to give me some advice on how is this text going to translate to illustration. And so I worked with her January, February, March, and trimmed the text down and got something that I was pretty happy with. I shopped it around during that time too, as many anybody who was willing to read it.
You're like, it's a children's book, quick read.
Yeah, it's a quick read.
I hear those words clearly.
Can you
Really?
please just give me some feedback? And so I got some feedback from another author friend of mine, and she said, I don't know what about this story, and it wasn't in verse yet. She said, but it reminds me of Shel Silverstein.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That's
The
cool.
poet.
Yeah. I got him
And I
down.
said, what, really? And she said, yeah, I don't know why, it just rings in my head like Shel Silverstein. So she said, have you ever thought about writing it in verse to trim it down even more? And I'm like,
Wow, that's creative.
I'm like, I'm not a poet. I know I'm not a poet, but I'm going to give it
You're going to give it a try.
And it was really funny. It was almost like it was channeled to me in verse
I believe that,
at that time. Once, because I already had the stories in my head.
It's already there. You just gotta get
And
it
so
here.
all you have to do is like change it up, and it just came to me.
That's
I
amazing.
want to share, you talked about getting people to read it. Very, very lucky that we have like 20 employees in my home office per se. And I put an email out to them a couple of years ago and said, I have a book. It's going to, if you want a copy, come to my office. I'm open to any feedback. I think you got to tell people that.
Absolutely.
Because people feel like, oh my God, I'm going to tell Marianne. I need it. As I am totally open to any feedback. If I did not dot an I, if it doesn't seem like it takes it, and I just had to talk to myself and say, now, Marianne, when they give it to you, don't put that face on. Like Sherry just said, smile through it.
Yeah,
But
smile
anyhow, to
through it,
make
right?
a long story short, one gentleman in my office gave me so much feedback. I never even thought this gentleman had this.
Yeah.
He went on, and it was amazing what he gave me. And that was like a bonus to the whole thing.
Yes.
Never thinking he would even want to read it, but he didn't have any children, and just kept giving me like unbelievable, fantastic feedback. I
Right.
mean, other people gave me pieces, really good pieces, but this guy just was amazing. So when whoever reads your book, if you're open to it, they'll go with the flow. They really will.
Right.
But that's not an easy thing to get people to read the book.
No.
Because it's interaction
and it's
afterwards.
Also, you have to be careful because I got a lot of negative feedback.
Oh yes, no, I agree.
You know, they're
Yep.
like, what is this? This is weird.
Yes, yep, exactly, yep.
And it is weird, and it's a different
But
book, and
but
it's
children.
68 pages. It's not a 32-page book.
But that's okay. It could be as
But that's Bill Joyce talking to
Yeah,
me and
yeah.
saying, do your
Do
thing.
your thing.
And I want to talk about my illustrator, though. So after the experience with the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, one of the suggestions they made too was look for local groups in your town, in your state to join. So I found ARIA,
Association. Always the one.
Association of Rhode Island Authors.
Aria's our camera person too.
Is that right? Okay.
So we kind of say both. We love Aria.
Right, we love Aria.
We love Aria in the book too.
I found Aria, and I think that organization is totally amazing.
He's amazing. Him and his wife are amazing.
Yes. And actually, in the end, I went with Steve Porter and Stillwater River Publications as my final publisher, even though I did all of the work, and this is a self-published work. The one thing I didn't trust myself to do, because it was so, the text was embedded in the images, and it had to be perfect, or it was not going to please me. And so I wanted Dawn to design the book and actually put it together and upload it for printing.
So how are you marketing it now?
Mostly, I have it everywhere. It's at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I have it in all the local bookstores, Savoy, Stillwater, Books on the Square.
Shout out to Steve and his wife too for the new store.
Oh yes, yes, they're there. And I hope to do a signing there maybe this fall.
Nice.
We'll see. I do book signings.
Nice.
And I'm doing events like I just did the Loof Festival. I'm going to the Big E on September 16th with it. I'll be in the Rhode Island building, in the Book Nook of the Rhode Island building.
Oh, that's so fun.
On a Sunday.
That is wonderful.
So I'm kind of excited about that. I think that will be a great opportunity. I do a lot of, not a lot, I do some social media promotion through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I cannot commit my life to that, and I put so much money into self-publishing. I don't want to hire somebody to do that for me. And really, when after I finished it, and that was the accomplishment, to actually do it.
To give yourself the birthday present.
That was my birthday present.
That's a beautiful present.
And if it, whatever happens to it happens. And I know that doesn't sound like a good business model.
No, I totally get that.
But, I don't really want to every day get up and commit to
I understand.
Doing 10 things. I try to do something for it every day and pay attention to it. And
Today,
not,
today you're doing it, and Rebecca's going to get you a CD, and it's got to go on YouTube. You never know who's going to watch it. I mean, really.
We don't have.
I got up this morning on my, I just think my iPhone's a tool. It's all I can think. It's everything. And when I got up this morning, I had a few extra moments and hit meditation on what to eat today. And it like pops up. And like I sat in bed for 20 minutes listening to this meditation on food. Like, what is not on that? You never know who's going to look for how to teach children ABCs, and your book pops up. I truly believe in the universe.
Actually, the target audience here is 9 to 12-year-olds. It's for kids who already know the alphabet. It's just a different twist. Like it's not a book that every kid is going to love. All right, but the kids who love it and won't put it down. I've had some fantastic feedback from people who have purchased it and made comments either on social media or sent me personal notes, and I've had a lot of feedback along those lines.
You must be so proud of yourself, really. You did it.
It's an accomplishment. I do feel like I accomplished
it truly is. Yes,
something.
It is.
Well, you said earlier that when you went to some of these conventions, it was publishing agencies are trying to make money versus the passion, and you had a passion and the money was secondary.
Yes,
So
yes.
you fulfilled your passion, which is, to me,
my passion was to get it illustrated to reflect my text. And, I have to talk about my illustrator. He's out of Providence. He's a professional illustrator out of Providence, and actually an artist. And you might see some of his work. He's big on outdoor murals. So when you see murals, a lot of times it will be Sam White. But I, had people who wanted to illustrate it, but I just knew, I could tell from the style of their art that it wasn't going to suit my book. And so I decided to put the job out on the internet and see what I'd get. So I put it out on Thumbtack.
Oh, wow.
And the next morning I woke up, I had 29 emails from all over the world.
Oh, goodness.
Of people who wanted to illustrate my book.
Wow.
I even had 2 phone calls. They had looked me up on the
way.
internet and called me and begged
No way.
to do it. So I narrowed it down to about 10 and sent them some text and said, please, give me just a sketch. How would you interpret? Pick one of the stories. I sent them 4 stories.
Yep.
Pick one of these stories and
Now,
show
were
me.
the 10 all local, or were they
No,
geographic area didn't matter?
They were in the United States.
Okay.
I had queries from Japan,
That's amazing.
Indonesia,
So
South Africa,
think about
Ireland.
that today. So
I know.
If you
I
wrote
could
this
have.
book in the 70s, like you had started it,
Exactly.
you would have been probably
Hopefully
dealing with the
it was
West
someone-
Virginia area only.
Exactly. So some of my friends that I had met at the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators Conference said, oh, if you can possibly find an illustrator that you can meet with face-to-face, try to do that.
Yeah.
Because we've worked long distance, and while you can pass stuff back and forth by email, it's going to take longer. And I had that deadline of November
23rd.
okay? And so one of my dates that I set was by May 15, I wanted to have an illustrator under contract.
Nice.
And so I didn't feel like I had a lot of time. And that was one of the things that made me choose Sam was, I
He's
said,
there.
okay, this is my schedule. Can you hit these targets?
Got it.
And some of the others that I had looked at, I didn't think they were going to be able to meet the targets.
Yeah.
I could just tell. They had other family issues, whatever.
Yeah.
So when I met with him, we definitely clicked. He loved my story. He got the humor in it, which, by the way, I just received an award for humor.
Oh, congratulations.
From the Human Relations Book Awards organization. And so I laughed because I'm like, finally, somebody gets the humor, because everybody doesn't get it,
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and so Sam got that humor, and it was really, that was rewarding to me.
He understood your book.
He understood it, and I knew he was the right artist, and he's the one who really brought it alive.
And it was right in Providence, Rhode Island.
And he was right in Providence. We would meet in East Greenwich halfway, and
So you're from West Virginia, now you live in Rhode Island. So
Yes.
now you're meeting halfway in East Greenwich. But I bet when you lived in West Virginia, going to Providence, that distance wouldn't have been an issue at all.
no.
But no.
Good pickup. That was
My
cool.
husband's from Wisconsin. He's always making fun of the fact that I'm like, oh, that's kind of long. It's like 20 minutes. He's like,
I have no problem
Yeah,
with driving
yeah.
any here or there or anywhere,
Yeah.
but people are amazed.
yes, at distance. Look,
You're going to Lincoln?
yes, exactly. Well, our state is probably might have been about the same size as the county you lived in.
Yes.
Which, when you think about
Yes.
that, that's
Exactly.
your whole county was your school district.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I think sometimes we don't realize that. I lived in Louisiana for a little bit and was a teacher.
Yes.
And my county was the same size as my state.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing.
So you get it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Right.
So he did a fabulous job illustrating it.
He did. I was very, very pleased, and he hit all the deadlines for me, and was so good to redo. I mean, it wasn't all just everything perfect the first swipe.
No, it takes a few back and forth. Absolutely.
It took a while for us to
Yeah.
really get it going.
Yep.
But I was very pleased. This was the illustration that he sketched.
The C to the O to the C.
The O to the C,
Right.
and that was it.
Yeah,
And
it's in
and
the
I loved the subtleness of the shark. And he's very subtle. There are all kinds of subtle things in here. Like, this is the kind of book that a kid pores over, for days. They don't
Days,
just
yeah.
read it one
Read
time
once.
and that's
Yeah.
it.
Well, being a
You're gonna-
teacher, you know
You got a knack. You got a knack. That's cool.
what kids want,
So
which is great.
The C and the C. That's pretty cool. That's really neat. The
So
C
did
and
you have
the
any
C.
mentors throughout your career that have helped you get to fulfilling your passion?
I think I've met a lot of people along the way. I can't really think of one in particular. My friend who was a fellow kindergarten teacher, Leah Stern, worked with me on this. I mean, we collaborated back and forth a lot when we would discuss these stories and laugh. Oh, we laughed so hard because, you know, if you're not having fun with what you're doing,
Yeah.
Why do it?
you know,
I'm totally with you.
You have to laugh.
You got to
And
wake up and
kids,
have a good time.
You have to make
Yeah.
it fun for kids.
Yeah.
They feel that in the classroom.
If they don't feel the energy, and
energy,
the
right.
excitement there,
Kids know.
and know that this is something that it's really important. The alphabet's the basis for everything.
Literacy.
Ironically enough, we were at an open house in Pawtucket for Stillwater. And that's how we met.
Oh, really?
We both bent down at the
Yes,
same time
yes.
to pick a book off the shelf and kind of like hit each other's heads.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so.
Right.
And here you are today on Women's Business. So you're pretty
Thanks
open.
to your invitation.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
like,
just never
hey,
know.
you're a Northie, you want to come on our show? So that worked absolutely wonderful.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
thank you for
great.
doing it. I appreciate it, really.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Anything you want to leave the show? We probably have like another couple of minutes. Anything you want to share? Words of wisdom? Change anything? This will
You know, I would just like to say, you know, it's never too late. It's never too late.
Never.
And, you know, I had put this to bed years ago and you know, pulled it out many, many times
Yep.
and looked at it and really had actually shopped it around to some of the big, you know, houses and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that if you have a book that or have an idea, that it's nice to, you know, take that step,
Take
make
it the
that
next step.
commitment, and
Let it go.
There's a lot of information on the internet, but you've got to have some personal help along the way.
Quick question. This should have been a question I asked at the beginning and at the end. What do you think about children's books? So is it still being handheld? Do you think
Absolutely.
we have a world here, or do you think it's going to be a total internet?
Children's books are what's keeping the publishing industry going.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
Um,
Somehow I think mom and dad, grandma, aunt, uncle,
Yes.
childcare people have to kind of snuggle, talk.
Speaking of that, I think this is a book that, you know, all grandparents should have on their coffee table because it appeals to a wide range of ages.
Yeah.
And it will intrigue kids.
I
You know,
promise
it's
at
just.
the end of the show, I will go buy one for each one of my childcare facilities.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
I'll make sure the kids have them. The school age. And I'll put one
Yeah.
on my coffee table next to Edgar Graduates. See, my book's a seasonal book. You know, it kind of comes out like it springtime,
right.
but there's a whole message behind that one.
Right.
So,
Well, this is a book that's never going to die.
That yours is 52. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it will go year round.
Yes,
and,
yours
you
is
know,
totally
I'm going to do a
year-round.
big push
Yeah.
for Christmas time because I think it makes a nice gift.
Beautiful gift. We could talk more about that another time.
Yeah. Okay.
Super.
Thank you very much for being on the show. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having
Thank you
me.
for choosing Rhode Island to come to live
know,
in from West Virginia.
I
I
love
to
it.
hear that.
It's-
That's
it's-
good.
Especially
Even the
like coming
snow?
I do. I like snow.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I like how you handle snow here. So.
Oh, good.
Right.
Well, so we have something on for us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great show. Great show.